first session this afternoon is going to be absolutely outstanding. We're going to meet somebody who's probably even less than half my age and 4 times as smart. He has 250 million customers online on his app. He's going to tell us about how he started that app, where it came from, how he got it to grow, to get that sort of phenomenal growth, 250 million users. He's going to tell us about the infrastructure. He's going to tell us about the business model. He's going to tell us about his personal motivation to get there. Before I bring him out, and we're going to do this in a QA format, before I bring him out, I'd like to show you a brief video to give you a sense of what we're going to be listening to. Could we have the video, please?
Ultimate Guitar is the #1 destination for tablature notations for learning songs. Ultimate Guitar's community has 250 million musicians. That's more regular active users than Snapchat and Pinterest. But it all started in 1998 when a university student wanted to share tabs of his favorite songs.
Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome to the WHD.global.com arena, Mr. Eugeny Naidenov. Eugeny, come and join us.
Hey. Hello, everyone. Nice to see you here. Okay.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we have before us a brilliant young person who has built a business from nothing in a part of the world where it's unimaginable that you could have global success. So I'm going to ask the first question. How did you have this idea to start? Where did it all come from, Eugeny?
Okay. Well, the first thing that you need to know is that I'm a big fan of rock music, obviously.
Good. Do we have any other fans of rock music in the audience? Good.
Okay.
Tomorrow night, guys, I am promising you, I cannot tell you, I have been sworn to secrecy, but it is going to be exceptional, outstanding, memorable, and remarkable. Tell us about the rock bands you liked.
Well, I'm a big fan of Slash from Guns N' Roses.
Do we have any Slash fans here?
No Slash?
Right.
Oh, okay. There is one. Two. Okay, great. And then, you know, the rest of the story is sort of like it happened by accident. When it was the last year in school, I met a guy, you know, from the same school, and I just asked, like, hey, what's your plan for this summer? And he told me the story about, you know, that he's doing, you know, some internet things. He's starting, you know, some web page about something that he's interested in. And I said, well, that's great. Can you show me how that works? And he showed me, you know, that HTML, you know, thing, how to program a page and, you know, uploaded it so, you know, other people can access. And this is how I spent my next 3 months, you know, during the summer, you know, break between school and...
And how old were you at this time, Eugeny?
It was 16, 17.
16 or
yeah.
17.
Yeah.
And it was your passion for understanding these IT technology programming skills that was the initial motor for this. This was this lucky meeting with this guy who had that knowledge and showed you?
Yeah, because I was, you know, I always had computers near me since I was, you know, very small. And that was, you know, another thing that I'm interested in to try. So it was that great, you know, connection between music and technology.
So the application of those pages you were sharing were about music and about
Tablature.
Okay, so tell us a bit about how tablature works. I understand sheet music, and you buy it, and it's got all the musical staffs or whatever they're called. Where does tablature fit into the picture?
Okay, so tablature is sort of like a simplified version compared to standard musical notation.
Okay.
It lacks of, you know, many things like, you know, timing and so on. But it's very accessible thing for most people to understand how to play, you know, licks, solos, and so on.
So it's a visual representation of where you would put your fingers on the...
It's a visual representation in a text format. This is why it's very accessible. You don't need like any special editor, you know, to create tablature. You just use things like Notepad.
Okay. So let me ask you then, the desire to then share these tablature descriptions of the different music. Did you create them all yourself, or did you create a hub where people would share? How did that phase work?
Well, at the same time, I was a user of FIDO networks. It's like a bulletin board, system, very popular in, mid 90s. And this is how I learned that, such thing as tablature exists. So I started to collect tablatures for myself of my favorite bands, like Aerosmith, Guns N' Roses.
So you were solving your own problem by finding a source of tablature so you could learn to play the slash riffs that you liked and so on.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
there's a personal driver at the very bottom of all this.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Then what happened next?
And then, after learning how to code, using HTML for 3 months, I uploaded, my first website to some free hosting, and I put this little counter so I can see if anyone visit my page. Submitted a couple links to Yahoo directory, and went to the bed. And when I woke up in the morning, I saw that there were 30 people who visited my page, this night. And that was,
you said,
wow.
I'll stop now, I'm ahead.
It was like, that's interesting that, there are some people that are interested in what I'm doing.
Now remind us at this time, where are you physically?
Physically, Kaliningrad, Russia.
Okay. And those 30 viewers, where would they have been? Did you have stats on where they were coming from?
Oh, no. Back then, they were not touching because,
What are you
Google
guessing?
Analytics, it was United States, I think, because, this is the visitors of Yahoo, mostly.
Okay. Good. So, from your hometown in Russia, you have put this page up with some tablature music, and the next morning you got 30 users.
Yeah.
So does anyone need help on joining the dots between 30 users and 250 million users? Good, I'm one of them.
Okay.
So tell us, what was the next step? How did you build out that engagement, that traction?
Okay, so the next challenge is that, eventually it got to the level like, 10,000 people visiting me, a day. And then I got a call because I was using a very cheap, plan for a virtual server somewhere.
Cheap means high value, low cost.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, a shorter form of telling the same thing. And I got a call from, data center manager, and he said, look, your, website that used this very effective low-cost, plan, you are sort of like using half of the pipe, bandwidth that we have in the whole data center. So
that's a compliment, right?
Yeah, that was, except that they told me that, I need to get, to a way more, not that efficient, plan, not so, low cost. And I got, a little upset because it was like a huge money for me to pay because I was not monetizing, website at this moment. And
so this is a growing pain.
yeah,
So how did you overcome that growing pain?
I started to monetize.
Okay.
So yeah, I started to look around what people are doing in order to generate some revenue, so I can at least keep doing this thing.
And in that process, did you change hosting provider to somebody else who was?
I found some less expensive solution, but it was still more money than I was paying before.
And at that time, what was your IT infrastructure? How would you describe it? What did the server layout look like?
Well, it started very simple. I got one dedicated, server where, for database and application front end, on the same one, and it lasted for about a year. And then I switched to 2, servers. Yeah, it's.
And was that to get
one for database and one for front end?
Okay.
And this lasted for maybe 2 or 3 years.
And the first phase before you went to the 2, how long was that period of time?
1 year.
1 year.
Yeah.
And then you went there, and then 3 years at 2 servers?
Yeah, and it started to grow, so I've been adding, more servers at the time when I needed one, or at the time when there was some redundancy, problems, so, extra servers to back up. And so on. And so eventually it's grown to about like 20 servers.
20 servers to serve 250 million users.
Yeah.
Wow. And where Are those servers located physically, geographically?
It's one data center, and we have a backup, data center. So one in Amsterdam, and one location is Amsterdam, and another location is Germany.
Okay, so they're both European time zones. Yeah. And does that give you any performance constraints if the larger part of your user base is in the US?
Well, the connection is so much better these days compared to like 10 years or 15 years ago. I don't see it's like a huge problem. At the same time, I won't say that we are not going to solve this. I mean, yeah, we are planning to, do some, further upgrades of the system, so we're closer physically to our users. So, hosting somewhere in the United States as well.
And will you keep the two locations in Europe as triple failover, or?
Well, yeah, mostly.
The problems of growth, good problems to have, luxury problems. Good. So that's the growth path. In terms of developing the app, so at this stage we're getting 10,000 hits a day on your website. You decided you needed to monetize it because your hoster was complaining that you're using half their capacity in terms of bandwidth. What were the first steps you made into monetization? Because that's often a tricky phase.
Well, I was lucky. So first of all, I, joined one of these, ad networks, and it started to generate, enough revenue so I can pay for hosting. But then I got a call at like literally 3 a.m. in the morning, and
so that's the US?
Yeah, and some guy like, hello, I'm Craig from UGO, and I'm like, Craig who, from what? Yeah. Oh, what's happening? And so they said that your website is great, we'll love what you do, and we want to have an exclusive partnership, advertising partnership. So we put our ads and monetize it for you, and we're gonna pay you $1,500 per month guaranteed. And that was like 6 months of salary in Russia. So I was like, wow.
So you accepted?
Yeah.
But they found you. That's interesting as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you've now got a paid advertiser on a monthly commitment basis. You've got some guaranteed money coming in. What happened next?
Well, then we started to work more on the website. I started hiring, people for the company, and it was, it grew from like 2 people to 10 people maybe in a year. Okay. Sort of like this. I got the first real office because, before this I had an office in my apartment.
Which was called your bedroom?
Yeah. Okay. And we started doing, many other things, look around how to grow traffic, how to better monetize, what are the options. So basically we started concentrating on specific, problems to solve. And there are 2 other facts that helped us. First of all, and again, that's 15 years ago. That was 15 years ago. We created a system so anyone can upload tablature to the website in an automatic fashion. And besides this, we had this system development so community can actually manage and make a decision what tablature goes online and what tablature is not going online. 15 years ago. I know it's a standard thing these days, but
so we're talking business model now, essentially.
Yeah.
It was free user content created and then shared through the community.
Exactly.
Business model.
Yeah, exactly.
So that wasn't monetizable at that time. Wasn't being monetized.
It was not monetized that well. So when we implemented the system, we saw an amount of, growth of amount of tablatures that been submitted on a daily basis, like 10 times more. Because now I was not that restriction. I was doing this manually. I was getting emails from people saying that, can you please upload this tablature and this tablature, and that's all a whole process. And now it was all automatic. And this is how we started getting way more content than ever before. That's the first thing. And the second thing, again, 15 years ago, because we have a dynamic website, pages, these were not indexed well by search engines. So even though we had all these tablatures, no one can actually, find them. And so we started to, instead of doing this in a dynamic fashion, we started to generate, these pages as a, HTML files. And that helped to get a better indexing with, Google, Alta Vista, Yahoo. It was big then, and we started to get in more traffic. Like we grew 2 times in 4 months.
Twice in 4 months.
And then there is a third thing which helped us, because music publishing industry started to get annoyed by the popularity of services like us, and they were sending cease and desist letters to everyone, United States, Canada, Europe later, and people started to shut down their websites because they had no way to license their operations and to pay royalties. And these webmasters were sending me emails like, hey, I have this website from Sweden, and I've been doing this for 10 years, and I need to shut it down. Can you host all these tablatures that I have on Ultimate Guitar, so it's not like completely lost? Okay.
Okay, so this is a new level of acquiring the database of tablature with people who'd been doing it themselves on a smaller scale, just gave it all to you.
Yeah.
So they got rid of the complication with legal and copyright and gave it to you, and then you had a bigger problem with copyright.
Yes,
deal.
exactly. So I wanted to get into more problems, give me all these problems. And yeah, it's not...
So tell us, before you go further then, Evgeny, what was the strategy behind this? You're thinking of building scale at any price at this time? Or what's the mindset that's going through your thinking to take on all this stuff when you know the liability is this unknown copyright issue?
Well, it was that time when, you literally, get back home from somewhere and I check my email and I get like cease and desist letter from this one. Next morning I get cease and desist letter from this publisher. So it was, crazy, crazy period of time when I was hated by the whole music, publishing industry. But,
Anybody who makes significant structural change in an industry is hated in the first stage. I think that's the validation that you're going down the right path. But let's talk a bit more about business models. To help everyone understand, up until that time, the only way to get music was to buy sheet music. Who owned the sheet music? Was it the musicians? Was it a third party? What was the structure of that business before you transformed it?
Okay, it's not that simple question, but
just give
in
a
simplified way, it's owned by music publishers. Like Sony, EMI, Warner Chappell, and so
who aren't necessarily the record labels.
This is a
different,
totally different things.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not record labels. Okay. It's music publishing companies, and so yeah, they owe copyright to this content, even if
the
it's
content in the form of sheet music. Does that mean that by default they own it in the form of tablature?
That was the biggest challenge to solve, 10 years ago. So music publishers said that, we don't like that you host all these tablatures and give away basically for free to, anyone. But...
And you said, have a look at my hosting bills. You wouldn't like it either.
Yeah, but at the same time, when we've been asking them, but okay, do you have any solution? Can we start, paying you so we can keep this doing? And they were like, no, there is no standard solution to the situation. There is no such thing as a, standard contract to license user-generated tablatures. It's non-existent thing.
So we're in a new uncharted space.
Yeah. So we had to go to each, music publishers. Talk with them and create this model for paying royalties for user-generated tablatures, and that's what basically we did. We created this model. We got it.
So how do you keep all these balls in the air at the same time? You're a small company. You're still a startup. You're very IT-centric. Getting this online community going, and at the same time, you've got to have a whole third brain to go off and do all these deals one by one with each one of these music publishing houses to be able to legally do what you're doing.
Well, I wasn't skeptical that it's not going to work. I mean, I always believed that we will find a way to do this.
I think there's a very powerful lesson for us all right there. If we don't believe, if we don't have this faith that there is a way forward, sure as hell we won't find one.
Yeah, and the thing is that it took us 7 years from start to finish, to get this license agreement.
There's a reason for that. Lawyers charge by the hour.
Yeah, so eventually we got all the majors, on board with us, all the major, music publishing companies, and then, the smaller ones started to approve this model, and that's when it became more easier.
Okay, so how different was the payment system for copyright usage for traditional sheet music on paper compared to digitally shared files of tablature?
I would say that it's more expensive. For user-generated, they want more.
I get it.
Yeah, so this
There's
is...
no question of logic in here, it's just...
There is no logic.
No logic.
But that's, because I think that because they were afraid of what's happening, they saw that the trend of, interest to user-generated tablatures is, increasing 10 times, a year, and they wanted to control this.
So you've now spent this considerable period of time and effort one-to-one negotiating T's and C's with each of the majors, and then the minors started to follow, so you reached tipping point critical mass. You're now legal. How did the monetization and the P&L of the business go through that transition?
Well, because we've been creative every time, and now we're creative too, and we, of course, started to think about new ways of, monetizing, and, then thanks to, Apple and iPhones, we got new niche.
Up until now, you've told us about a number of hits on the website. So we're in a website now. From there, you went to apps. What was the transformation and the IT navigation to go from a PC web-centric approach to mobile apps, iPhone and others?
Okay, so, well, first of all, we missed by a couple years this whole iPhone craziness, that were happening, because the simple reason, because iPhones were not, that widely available in Russia. So it's sort of like, I don't understand what is happening. And then we got, one of our users said like...
Interesting learning point right there. We didn't track demand in the market, trends in the market because of our geographical proximity. And we know the US often leads on early adoption of anything new. And so that's an interesting self-observation. So you recognize that, then you were able to catch up and transform that into your advantage.
We created, our first application with we didn't know what's gonna happen. And we uploaded it, to the App Store. And 7 days later, we've been number 8 most popular application on the App Store. And we thought...
In all categories?
Yeah.
Overall. 7 days to get to number 8. So if my math's any good, another week and a half and you'll be at number 1. Fabulous. So does that mean there's a latent, hidden population of, what would be the word, fantasy guitar players who are hiding behind us all and just waiting to find out about the app so they can go online and download it?
Yeah. Well, it was a completely new niche for us to see. And we saw, potential of this thing. And, 1 year later, we had all the devices, covered. Android application, HD, for bigger screens. It was all done. And
now, there must be quite a bit of overhead, internal programming and resources required to be able to support all those different platforms.
Yeah, that was another, small change because it was not popular as a programming language, in Russia either. So we basically grow this knowledge internally. So people start to learn how to program stuff for app.
And at this time, your company is how many people?
Back then?
when we're talking about this phase of going multi-platform? You finished negotiating
35 people.
35 now.
Yeah, about that.
All based in Kaliningrad as well?
Oh, mostly, yeah. We had some people in the United States for licensing and ad sales, advertising sales.
And then how do you track to pay the royalties for the usage of these copyrights? That must be quite a big complex piece.
That's that's a whole system. It's like we have a separate department dedicated just to.
Is anybody looking for a royalty tracking system here, by the way? Could be a good opportunity.
Yeah. So we had to build this thing, from scratch as well, because there was no solution available to.
And I'm assuming that the music houses don't have any ability to monitor or track what you're doing. It's up to you. It's self-reporting. You have to self-certify that you've had this many downloads and.
Well, they cannot, monitor this like in a direct way, but they use some information about trends, and they can see and check if something doesn't right.
So they can get an approximative sense, but really they're going on what your systems are generating in terms of numbers.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so we have solved the contractual issues around copyright usage. We have gone multi-platform. We are now number 8 on the top most popular downloads on Apple. What was the next growth point?
Well, we started to monetize better our web traffic. So we had this premium service on the web, and then later we created of course the whole ecosystem, so it's available as an app as well. It's called Tap Pro, and that was a great success over years. Initially, it was not so that successful because we needed to understand and to get some knowledge how to convert people from free to premium users. That was a different story.
So now we're into buyer personas. Some people want to take it in one form and stay there. Other people want to buy it another way and will pay more. Tell us about those segmentation in buyer personas that you've discovered.
Okay, so. I can tell this, statistics. So, speaking of all the traffic and, people that visit Ultimate Guitar in various forms, about 10% of our users are, premium users. So it's, combination of app and, web premium. And then there is a split of 50-50 between, in terms of browser traffic, mobile and desktop. And for us, it was a little different because, worldwide mobile traffic these days is more than, web traffic. But for our audience, they, when you learn a song, you need to have a bigger screen. So the adoption of mobile is happening at a slower pace than, in the rest of the world.
As you're saying that, I'm thinking, isn't there also a difference in the user scenario? If this is around playing guitar, you're not going to do it on a bus or something where you might have your mobile phone. It's probably going to be at home, in the music studio, your bedroom, wherever. So probably it's going to go on the less mobile devices only because that's where the instrument is. Is that a part of the mix?
I mean, I think so, yes. So, and then we saw that a lot of, music teachers, orchestras, these church ensembles are using, our service. And we actually got a lot of, complaints because at some day, our logo went from, just G to G with horns.
Yes, I noticed that.
With horns, and we got...
As in the devil?
Yeah.
Yes.
And we got like a lot of messages like, hey, what's happening? It's, it's a devil. You cannot do this. We cannot use your website in church now. And things like that. And then
So is this a market segmentation strategy?
I don't know. And yeah, I had to, tell them this, story about, maybe you heard it's about Crossroads. It's a old, rock and roll,
Does everyone know Crossroads, the event? Is it Clapton who put it together initially? It's a huge guitar festival, electric guitar festival, every year somewhere in the Midwest of America.
Yeah, and this Crossroads legend is about, a musician meeting a devil at a crossroads, and you sell your soul for an exceptional guitar skills. That's the legend.
Sounds like a fair deal.
And you know, when I was actually telling this story, that hey, it's a part of rock and roll history, and I say, oh, okay, then it's fine. And then there was a 1st April joke at once when we decided to change horns with, you know, like Shrek with, you know, little ears. And we said, like, you know, we want to be more like family friendly, and this is our new logo. And like 40, you know, % of people said it's a great move. You should keep it. And I said, sorry, it was a joke. No, it's not staying.
But I can see we're not far away from a multiple branding strategy for different market segments.
Yeah, it's a good decision. Yeah, thank you. Good idea.
Now, you told me when we were talking you had a funny story to tell me about. What was that, Eugeny?
One of them I just told you. Well, you know, 1st April joke. And the biggest...
There's another one you told me about here.
Yeah,
About being contacted by someone in the US.
Yes, exactly. So as I said, I was and still, you know, big fan of Slash. And as a kid, I was dreaming that you know, someday I'm gonna share a stage with Slash and, you know, play on guitar. And 10 years later...
Anyone here have that dream to play guitar on stage with Slash as well? Someone's honest. Two honest people. Very good.
Okay. And 10 years later, I got a call from Slash manager.
Slash's manager.
And he said, like, look, you know, we like what you do. Can you become an official website for Slash new band? So it's like...
So you were contacted by Slash's manager, unsolicited. He contacted you and asked, we like what you're doing, we see that. Would you develop and manage the website for Slash's new band?
Yep.
So not Guns N' Roses.
It's a Slash new band. It's this period when Slash left.
And I'm guessing you said no way.
Yeah, not interested. Sorry, bye.
But if he's coming on stage, call me back.
Yeah. So it was like, you know, the same idea of sharing, you know, stage, but in a virtual, you know, way.
Absolutely. So how did that work out? That was a project within your business? You treated that as an extension of your current business, or that was a project apart? Or are you still doing that today?
Well, I think it was more for fun. You know, I would do things for free for Slash. So it was not business.
Don't go there.
Well, so yeah, it wasn't much about business.
And you're still running that?
No, it was live for like a couple of years, and then Slash went to do something else.
We went back to Guns N' Roses, so it's no longer...
Well, it was much later, but, you know, Slash wanted to do something else, so we...
Okay, so the killer question here is the following. Did Slash learn to play all his riffs from Ultimate Guitar?
Absolutely.
Good.
Yeah. Well, actually, the third funny story, Dave Mustaine, you know Dave Mustaine from Megadeth? Okay, no one. It's a big, you know, United States band, Megadeth. And he, you know, we chat a lot, you know, through Twitter with Dave Mustaine. He loves Ultimate Guitar. And he actually mentioned that for one of the concerts, it was about, you know, doing some like classical music. And he actually used Ultimate Guitar, you know, tablatures to learn how to play these songs. So that's happening.
What a great recommendation, what a great endorsement.
Yeah.
We have time for one more question. Would anyone like to ask a question from the audience?
Okay.
Yes, please, shout it out. I don't think we have a microphone handy.
My question's about the deals with the publishers. It seems like you've, you know, grown so much that you might have a lot of leverage. Have you gone back to renegotiating those deals, or is that at all in the future?
Well, thank
Did
you.
everyone hear the question? You've done a great job negotiating with the publishers, but at that time you didn't have the scale you have today. Have you thought of going back to renegotiate given that power that you have? Great question.
Okay, thank you for the question. So it's not that easy to renegotiate, you know, things once they're all set. Like now it's standard, you know, and it's really hard to shake this type of things. But that doesn't mean that you cannot create a new model, a new type of deals. And this is what we're doing right now with our, upcoming product. So it will be a little bit more favorable, terms for us, yet it will require more work. So we're creating, high-quality tablatures in-house. We have some, special technologies as a part of this. And because we are spending so much resources on creating this and owning the content, they agreed for better terms. So it's yes and no. you sort of cannot renegotiate what's already happening, but you can create something new. And this is what we're doing.
Very interesting. So last question. What's the future like? Where do you go from here?
Okay, so as I mentioned, new products. So there are many new technologies that we're seeing right now. I've been on South by Southwest conference recently. It's all about virtual reality, machine learning, and things like that. And I believe that these technologies some days will be adopted to what we're doing as well. It's not clear right now how exactly to use it. But what we can do these days, this year and next year, is create a better efficiency in the sound learning, process. Because really, there are a lot of various pieces that guitarists do in order to learn how to play a song. Like you need to have a high quality, tablature. You need to have a backing track, to practice it. You need to have a video. And so we're creating a product which will have high quality tablature, track by track. All the tracks in a song will have a multi-backing track, so each track, have a backing track for. Then we will have, videos as a part of this. And then there is a special, magic that we have. It's called, tone bridge technology. So basically, if you want to have that sound from that particular, song that you're learning, you just tap a button on your screen and you get it right in your guitar. So you connect your guitar with, any device, Android or iOS device, tap, one thing, and you get that exact, sound. You don't need all this.
In the guitar?
In the guitar.
So you don't have to play anymore, you just press the button and all the notes?
No.
Yes. I like this.
Yeah, but you don't need all this, pedals and turning knobs and figuring out how to get that sound. You just get it.
Fabulous. A wonderfully inspiring, insightful journey from nothing to success in a highly global and highly legalized world, and a future of differentiation and new capabilities coming in the future. Ladies and gentlemen, please help us thank Mr. Eugeny Naidenov from Ultimate Guitar.
Okay, thank you.